I'll go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and call the Nottingham Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, March 13th, 2024 to order. Before we do introductions, I'm just going to point out at this moment in the meeting, this was supposed to be a non-business meeting anyhow. We do not have an official quorum at the moment. As any new member that was elected as of yesterday, we have to await the recount period through the 15th of this week before they can be sworn in as members of the board. So at the moment, we have 3 members of the board, which is not a quorum. We need 4. So anything we discuss tonight, it's gonna be no official business. We will not be taking motions or votes on anything. But just for the record, we are gonna have some general discussion, since we are here, and there's a few items just to catch people up on. So Mr. Cummings, welcome. Obviously, the next meeting, unless there's a change, you'll be a full member, and then you'll just have to get sworn in between, which is done by the town clerk usually, or a select board member. For any new member, we'll make sure we get contact information so we can reach out. We'll share something that our Stratford Regional Planning Commission, our planner, Blair Haney, emailed out. It's a link, and that's the PDF versions of the links, which is a little bit helpful and also not helpful. But it's helpful links for all planning board members. So a link to the New Hampshire Planning Board Handbook that's put out from the Office of Planning and Development, or whatever their abbreviation is now. Guide to land use boards. There's different items in there that can help, and then some references to certain permits, like alteration of terrain, a description of the permit, the RSA that governs it, the shoreline permits, Subsurface Bureau, Wetlands Bureau, Division of Historical Resources, Division of Fire and Safety, and things of that nature. So it's a helpful little document that's there. And so, sorry, Drew, last name? Stevens, thank you. I was just explaining, we do not have a quorum tonight, at the moment anyway, and then we scheduled this meeting incorrectly. It should have been scheduled for next week, which is after the recount period when new members can be sworn in. So as long as there's no change in the election after the end of this week, anybody that was elected as a regular member, write in. We just need to get sworn in from the town clerk before the next meeting. And if you can, just contact information, email and phone, so that I can pass that on to the land use clerk, so she can start distributing some case files and things of that nature. So before I keep speaking, I'll just have the 3 people that are here go ahead and introduce themselves.
Trace Bascom.
Tom Moore.
And Edward Veal.
Quick question.
Of course.
Is our next meeting going to be the 27th? That Wednesday, the 4th Wednesday? Or are we going to be meeting next week?
We can schedule a meeting for next Wednesday if the board so chooses. My thought on this would be, depending on what that caseload is for the 27th, right now I can think of one that's continued to that night.
Correct.
And now we have a couple of others that I believe are gonna be scheduled for that night. There's copies of revised plans up there for any member, and feel free to take a copy. Again, if changes happen, we'll get new copies out to people. So let me see what the dates are on these, March 27th and March 27th. So we have 2 new cases on that night as well. So what I would propose is that we have a 6:30 to 7 meeting, 6:45 to 7, as non-business to handle the.
On the 27th.
Yeah.
And I won't be here. I would be able to be here next week, but I'm helping out the Granite State FFA and judging some contests up in Bretton Woods, so I won't be able to be here.
Yeah.
I am, for 2 nights.
So yeah, I don't know.
We can't even accept the resignation.
I know. So anything we have on our agenda for tonight that would take formal action, we're not gonna be addressing tonight. So before we go too far into the meeting, a couple of things I wanted to point out is to thank some of the former members. Charlene Anderson has given a lot to this board and was our SRPC rep for as well. She's also served on the board previously and on subcommittees and things of that nature, so brought a wealth of information and experience to this board, and her experiences in service that she gave to the board is appreciated into the town. And definitely Susan Mooney. I don't know how many years Susan served on this. I've been on the board for about 12 now,
Yes.
and she predated me,
She said she was close to 20.
so.
Yeah, she was on when I was on 6, and that's 6, 12, that was 15 years ago she was sitting on the
Yeah,
board, so, or something like
Close
that.
to
Or
20.
People use the term like countless hours often, and it's not really meaning anything, but in this case, Susan definitely put in countless hours for the town and still does. She's a member of the Conservation Commission as well, so wears multiple hats. Again, these are non-paid, non-stipend positions. We do not get paid for anything of this. We do it as part of our civic duty, volunteer, and we take the responsibility with a lot of care. So again, thank you to Susan Mooney for all her years of that she's dedicated to the town and this board, and to Ms. Anderson as well. Public hearings, we don't have any, obviously. We have Mr. McKinnon, current vice chair, has tendered his resignation due to personal reasons and changes in life. We cannot act on that resignation tonight. We will act on it at the next meeting. And at that time, if we have an individual that would like to be potentially seated for that seat, that we could potentially act on that at the same night. Review of bylaws, we are not going to be tackling tonight either. We'll make sure that Alana gets that out to everybody. We do that every year. We tend to reapprove them every year or readopt them every year, but technically, once they're adopted, they are the rule until we either amend them or rescind them. But I always like everybody to get a chance to read into those and give input if any changes may be needed.
And those are also on the website, so for those of you that are going to be new members, you can locate them there and look them over so that you'll know what rules we are governed by at each meeting.
Excellent point. Yeah, we try to put as much information on the town website under the planning board tab as possible. There's a current applications before the board tab that will list any application that's still ongoing or new, with usually links to the PDF copies of files, the application and such. As we get more information as well, if we get a report from any like environmental assessment report or a traffic study, those will usually go on as well. So great place to get caught up if you haven't had a chance to yet. I know you both attended this site walk on Saturday, so thank you for being there. That case has continued, that we were to the 27th. And there's been some action on it already, so we have copies of the minutes that probably will catch you up as well. The meetings are recorded on the town YouTube channel if you want to review it that way. Updated subdivision regulations. We're not going to be tackling that tonight. That's just to kind of keep it in everybody's mind that we will be trying to look at that for early in the year. There's a couple of housekeeping things we know of that need to be updated in there at minimum. Grammatical stuff or changes to roads and appendices. And then there's probably some additional items that we know we've identified to clarify. So we'll send that back out to everybody as well. Where are we at? Public comment. So we always reserve a point of every meeting for the general public to come in and approach us and ask questions and such. If it's about a specific property project application, we may not be able to answer about it because it's not a public hearing, but we always reserve this time. We do have an individual from the public. We had it under other, but it's really going to be public comment. Mr. Owen Friend Gray, just an introduction for engineering services for the town. If you want to come on up.
Sure, if you want, make it a little easier so you're not staring at the back.
Yeah, you're welcome to. See.
Thank you, Ed. As Ed said, my name is Owen Friend Gray. I live in town. I live down on Raymond Road. I've lived in town my entire life, and for the last 20 years of my life, I've been a professional practicing engineer. I love engineering. I love this town. My recent track record through my career has been on the municipal side. I was the assistant city engineer in Rochester, New Hampshire for 4 years, and then I have been with the city of Manchester for the last five years roughly, where I started as an assistant engineer, became the city engineer, and I'm the deputy director of public works. In this new role I'm in, I really enjoy a lot of the things I do, but one of the things I don't get to do much anymore is any hard engineering, which is something I really do enjoy. And to that end, I've created a business that I am going to go out into local small communities and offer municipal engineering services, which is not something that a lot of communities can have, a small engineer. I know a lot of communities will contract with larger engineering firms that can do planning board reviews, that can do inspections, site walks, things of that nature to assist the planning boards. But I also know those are large companies with a lot of different interests, activities, professionals, overhead, things of that nature. I am a small one-person firm with a large specialty in particularly not just municipal engineering, but also planning board reviews and subdivision and site plan engineering. When I was in Rochester for 4 years, one of my primary tasks was planning board reviews. I reviewed every single engineering application that went before and into Rochester. I was the sole reviewer of all of that. I developed a system in Rochester and a checklist and a schedule detailed list that was published to not only the board and within the files, but also to the engineering community so that they knew exactly what the different items were we were checking every time we checked them. When I say we, it was me. I had a list that was probably about 150 to 200 items long, all depending on the complexity of the situation. Smaller subdivisions, it's a lot of, not applicables, but when you get into larger, 30, 40, 50, 100 lot subdivisions, site plans, new roads, things of that nature, it gets obviously a lot more complicated. When I left Rochester for more career growth and moved to Manchester, I actually brought that system with me, and I've implemented it in Manchester as well. So over the last 9+ years, every site plan and subdivision that's been reviewed in Manchester and every site plan and subdivision that's been reviewed in Rochester has used the system I developed. And I had a hand in either directly doing it myself or overseeing it. I still do oversee that portion of our engineering group. So site plan development is something I'm very passionate about, something I really enjoy. I really like reviewing plans. But I also recognize and know that there is more than one way to engineer any solution. So an engineering review is not a review of how I think something should be engineered. An engineering review is compliance with local code, law, ordinances, and best practices. I have found through my tenure, a lot of the different consultants I've run into and butted heads with the most did not necessarily have bad engineering ideas, but just did not always follow necessarily the letter of the law and got into forms and areas of a lot of opinion or preference or style, which really isn't the purview of a review engineer. I think review engineers really do need to come up with a matrix or a methodology or a system to be systematic, consistent, predictable, and timely. If you start getting into opinions and redesigns and reworkings, you're missing deadlines, you're not respecting other engineers and what they've done, and I think a lot of times that causes issues with timeliness and returning a good, high-quality product within the agreed-upon timeframes. I can guarantee you at my current position with this newer level company that I can absolutely deliver any review products or services that you might have. I can do inspections on roads and or subdivisions and site plans as need be, and I have the ability to do that in a very timely, efficient, and low-cost manner that a lot of the bigger companies just can't. do. They have overhead, they have buildings, they have things they're keeping, running. I am sitting at a computer at my house. My overhead's pretty low. So I just wanted to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about myself, my services, what I'm going to be offering. In full transparency, I am also talking with the town. I've talked with the town administrator, Ellen White, and I've been in conversations with Steve, the new road agent, about different ways that my skill set and knowledge can either be employed in a professional manner or even can be employed in a volunteer effort at, a smaller level of effort perhaps, but to try to assist the town with different municipal services. Not only have I done a lot of planning board review right now in Manchester and in Rochester, I oversaw everything within a right-of-way or that was owned by the public. So right now in Manchester, it's facilities, parks, roads, sidewalks, bridges, dams, streetlights, traffic signals, sewer, water, drainage. All of that falls underneath my purview, and I have an extensive amount of experience with all of that. For the decade or so before I went into the public sector, I was a private engineer, where I did a lot of water, wastewater, and hazardous waste design work and efforts. So I have a large breadth of knowledge, I have a large amount of experience, and I think I have a skill set, a price point, and a timeliness, I think that would really be beneficial to this board and the town in general. So I just wanted to take a chance to introduce myself, let you know what I'm about and what I do, and see if there's maybe some way that we could work together in the future that'd be beneficial to everybody, so.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Fringray?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I'm on the outside looking in, I don't know very much.
Yeah,
You were on this board previously. Did you do the site plan reviews here for us?
planning? No, I've never been on the planning board in this town.
No?
No.
Okay.
Budget,
I'm on
that's
budget
where you
committee.
see him.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
I'm
Last
the-
time I was here, you were sitting at the table. I thought for sure you were on the planning board.
He wasn't here.
not on this one, no.
No?
You might have seen him at budget, but not here.
No.
Maybe it was budget.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Okay. Well, we'd be double dumb not to use your services. You're a local kid.
Try to
You
be,
know the place.
I try to be. I do like when people tell me how long they've been in town, because I get littered by my age, but I have been here 37 years, so I do like this town. I've built my forever home here. And I do like giving back to the town. And even, I mean, honestly, even if this professional venture doesn't pan out and isn't something that goes forward, I'm still gonna be here. I'm still gonna be helping where I can, so.
Well, I've only been here 32 years. They told me I was a new guy.
Yeah, you still are. You're from away.
Right.
Any other questions?
Nice presentation.
Thank you.
I hope that we can use your services.
I would appreciate it.
I'm sure the first couple of years, I'm sure we will use you, but it'll be on a trial basis
I would imagine.
until we see what goes on and what you charge and everything.
Oh, yeah.
like this, so.
Full-
Because you are competing against seasoned people that we've been using, this town's been using for years.
Very much so, and I'm,
Both sides of the things, on this side and on the other side, just for planning. But, in this day and age, it'd be nice to have somebody local that's more affordable, that's still gonna give the same quality of, that we're used to, and then maybe it will speed up some of our design review times and speed up some of the things that we're looking for.
Or
Yeah.
potential to be present for the meeting as well.
Yes,
'Cause
absolutely, so questions that need to be answered or whatever would be
one of the strengths,
probably one of the biggest pluses, especially with new boards and new people coming in the next couple of years.
yeah,
Right.
one of the strengths of this board, especially when we have a full board, is there's such a wide variety of, ages, backgrounds, and things of that nature, and what people do and their, and what they bring to the table that way. But in practicality, I don't know how many of us are out actually ever building a subdivision or a road, or, so we can see plans, we can apply regulations and things of that nature, but it's always good, having Mr. McKinnon, leave, like, that was a strength for this board that the town might not have been aware of, as a professional engineer. We could see things and, we'd get our engineering firm's comments back, but you'd give us kind of like practicality or that expectation of like what other towns really are doing, and, we have our rules and regulations, but other towns do things, and sometimes we're an outlier, sometimes they're an outlier, or, what seems like it's maybe a big waiver request really isn't. So, and out of full transparency, everybody, I went to undergrad school, UNH, with Mr. Fran Gray, but there's no other connection there, other than I ended up in Nottingham as well. But I just want to make sure that's full transparency for everybody.
See what you started with the full transparency.
But we have gotten, you know,
Want to know? I've known his family and his brothers ever since I've been a teenager, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry. Welcome to small town New Hampshire.
That's
This is
right.
what happens. People know each other from
Here, there, and everywhere, yeah.
everywhere for decades on end.
I think you're the same age as my brother, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me and
you went
Eli
to school
worked at-
together, right?
No,
Were you a year off?
I didn't, I was actually only a summer resident at that time here.
Oh,
But
okay.
me and Eli worked in Hannaford's together
Yeah.
back, when
There
we
you
were
go.
18 years old or whatever it was,
Oh
so.
my goodness, old home day.
Well, you worked at shopping.
30-some years ago.
Shop and save, yeah.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Going back, so, whatever, but.
thank you very much for coming in tonight and for
Absolutely.
sending in your information to the town.
It would be something, sorry to cut you off for a second, if you had something in writing or some detailed things that, you would be able to just send over to the new select board. So that, I know you had a conversation with Alan, but sometimes, you know, the third going through somebody to somebody, we'd rather see something
Yeah.
more.
If it's a direct email that works better for you, absolutely. I sent in a letter, just expressing interest a few months ago.
Yeah, but all the
but-
background, your presentation was actually
Yeah.
great for what you just did, you know, and sometimes you're not gonna get that off just a
One-page
two-paragraph
letter, yeah.
thing of what, that
Yep.
you've done, so.
No,
if you
I
could
could
break it
absolutely do
down
that.
Or something a little more.
I'll
like
send a
resume,
little,
That
I'll-
would be great.
yeah,
Resume.
cover letter, resume,
Yeah, exactly, something that we can
previous
file
experience, yeah.
for
absolutely.
future references, contact information,
Yep.
everything like that.
I can send you my contract rates and all of that. That's, lay it all out. There's no reason not to. My current rate's $140 an hour. With my experience and levels, I'm basically running as a PM or a senior PM type position, which most engineering firms are gonna bill you out at about 165 to 175 roughly, depending on what their services are. But I'm gonna bill you at 140 and I'm gonna do everything start to finish, bells to whistles, and you're gonna get a high quality product and you're gonna get it on time. And if I don't meet my deadlines and we don't have a previous agreement to change those deadlines, then you don't pay me and I still produce the product. We've made an agreement, I've made a promise, that's what I'm going to do and I'm gonna meet it.
Great, thank you.
Outside of, family emergencies and another super fun pandemic or
Everything within reason.
everything within reason, but that is how I run my business and that's how I've operated and that's how I'm going to. If we have a deal, we're gonna meet the deal. If not, you're gonna get your service without paying for it.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming in and
Absolutely.
introducing
And I really
yourself.
appreciate you guys listening to my spiel and entertaining me tonight, and hopefully we'll keep chatting going forward.
Yes,
And I'm
thank
sure
you.
we'll see you around sooner than later.
And we gotta schedule another appointment for BC to appoint a vacancy. Come on, John.
Thank you. So we had two sets of minutes, which we're not going to act on tonight. I've got copies of those, so I can, if anybody wants a hard copy before you leave, I can hand you a hard copy of that. And then I do have these books, but I'm going to hold off. I'll give these to Alana to hold on. These are every year we get a copy of the New Hampshire Planning. You mentioned you've been reading RSAs. That's what those are, but more specific to the planning and land use side of things instead of all the RSAs.
And can I recommend, I have mine because I'm on the board and wasn't up for, go through, read them over, mark them so that when things come in, you can look at them and reference them. There are some people that just use it as a paperweight and it really shouldn't be. There's a lot of valuable information in here that's important when we're doing the cases.
Yeah, I tend to look them up online a lot too, because it's
Yeah.
searchable.
And I don't like to do that. I like to look at a book. I'm a book
No,
person.
I'll be looking for specific words. I can do Control F. And then, there it is. Okay, so I know it's in this RSA. It is in that.
Something too is to actually, if you haven't, even though it's our zoning ordinances, do come into a lot of play of just general facts of like, say, hey, you know, for subdivisions, why it's 2 acres, you know, for normal, or why, you know, this, for setbacks, I mean, stuff that you want, but it's just general knowledge on a lot, on how a lot is, what your setback has to be, what your well radius has to be, you know, or stuff that might come in front of us when you're doing a business for the signage, lightage, down, you know, a lot of that stuff, you're not gonna, it's zoning, but it really relates to this board here. Sure. So, and that's just a simple 32 pages of,
Yeah, if you get a notebook to put zoning ordinance,
Yeah,
division, and
yeah,
all
subdivision
that in here.
regulations too is the other, those are the two things that if you're gonna really spend, I
Site
think my
plan.
time in the first 6 months is really try to focus on some of those. That book there is a lot of information.
Yep.
But you're speaking to a lawyer when you're reading that book, so sometimes the more simplest reasons is what we have for information, you know, on our regulations in this, and that'll give you the legal side of what you're looking for.
yep.
So sometimes even when I read that, I gotta like check myself and read it maybe 3 more times, cause I'm saying, well, what do they mean by this here? Cause it's not as black and white as what our regulations sometimes say.
Ed, may I ask a question?
Of course.
Is there a plan to update the master plan in the next few years?
Yes, that's, so on our agenda to start looking at, so we have a couple of major things to do, so, impact fees, we need to start getting re-reviewed, because every certain number of years, they're supposed to be re-reviewed to make sure they're still current and everything, and then either adjusted or accordingly. And then the master plan, ideally, is every 10 years that it gets updated, so we're at that 10-year mark.
Over.
So, how those are
In
done.
reading it, I got the sense that it was somewhat outdated.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I had the right information.
Yep, yeah, so the last revision was a major overhaul, almost like a complete rewrite. So this one, we're hoping will be a little bit easier, it'll probably be broken out into chunks. We usually break that off to a subcommittee, who will then kind of determine, you know, well, let's tackle these 3 chapters this year, or update these 3 pieces, and, you know, it could be a multi-cumulative year, approach. But with the subcommittee, it's usually a couple of board members at minimum, and then members of public, you know, and sometimes people roll on and off too, you know. Someone from the budget committee may step on and step away, and, things like that.
And we really kind of got, I wasn't on the board at the time, but we were, when I was on the board, rolling with it. And then we got COVID, which kind of set us back and messed up things for a few years. So even though it is beyond the 10-year mark, I think there is a little forgiveness because of that messing things up and then having to get going again once we started getting back together.
This year might not be, we can have you could probably set up some subcommittees to go over things, but if you're looking for any professional paid for advice, that's probably not gonna happen.
Oh, I know.
So,
What? You mean there's no money in the budget?
nope,
So,
we
So-
are kinda gonna, probably looks like gonna be on a little bit of a freeze, so.
with the master plan, oftentimes that can be handled by subcommittees. Obviously, there's
lot
some
of this
benefits
stuff
of doing things and bringing in a third party to assist with some things like charrettes, or, meaning public engagement sessions, things of that nature that are really aligned, because the master plan is, ideally, you try to get as much public input as possible to help guide the changes that are in there.
Well, that's because it dictates what the town does and how it looks. So that's why we really need the public involved.
Yep.
Because this is what you're saying you want your town to look like and operate like.
Yeah, and then but the impact fees part, that really generally is contracted out, because you know, oftentimes those can be challenged in court, and if it's just us kind of putting it together, it can be done. But when you have a third party that does it, that's a professional in that realm, it kind of covers you a little bit better. And again, they're pretty technical, so.
How much does it usually cost to hire a third-party professional to do something like this?
Trying to remember when we did the last set.
So the last set was done in 6 years there, then I went right into it after 6, so that was 2011 was, I think, when we were doing it.
Master plan.
The master plan,
Yeah.
that's what he's asking.
Okay.
That
Yes.
was the cost.
Okay.
And we had cause we didn't have one, so the guy we had was actually, I think he was from southern Maine, that was doing it. The problem is, there's not a lot of people out there that do that kind of work.
Right.
So that was specific, because I was like, wow, you couldn't just say, let's find somebody in town, because there ain't anybody in this town, that town, there ain't anybody around here that does that specific work. So, I don't know what the price could be, he could be $100 an hour, he could be $150 an hour. So, you know, I think that's when we get to the point of figuring out how we're gonna hit it after we did it, that's where we're gonna have to really sit and consider, Is he a 20-hour job? Is this a 40-hour job? How much time you're gonna put into it? Cause it could be significant.
Yeah.
It might could be, it was significant back in the day, cause he was cause I was actually on the board when we were doing it. And like the subcommittees would meet, then the guy would come in and he'd review what the subcommittees did and go. And it went on for 6 months that we had this guy on our retainer. So you can see how many hours that were involved, that could have been in there. I mean, he could have done 80 hours or more of work on that original thing. So
Whatever that price was in 2010, you can double it.
most likely, absolutely, cause yeah, he could have been $50 an hour then.
And it really depends on the scope of work too. Again, that one was a very major overhaul,
So
so,
it's huge, because we didn't have anything.
so
That
the
was like our-
formatting of it's a lot better. It's impact fees, my guess is you're probably, 5K is probably, 5,000 is probably conservative, but somewhere in that ballpark, depending on how many we tackle, and if we look to add any, depending on what the CIP, capital improvement plan. So the capital improvement plan works hand in hand with the impact fees in that you need to justify the impact fees by either expenditures, future planned expenditures and things like that. There's legal things you can use them for and everything, so that's a framework. But if there's nothing in the CIP that says, like, for example, for the fire department, then that's probably one that would get zeroed out, because you can't justify it. Whereas if there's, so that's part of that process. And there was one person, Jack Meddy, no, he was planning, there was another person.
No, it was Jeff.
There was one person that was handling impact fees. If you called any municipality, that person, and he's out of business now, or he's retired.
But I
So
gave you the one that did the UNH
I got one in Dover that people referred to, Mark Fougier, maybe, that I contacted previously, earlier in the year to just see, or end of last year.
But in this day and age, somebody could write a warrant article and we might not have impact fees anymore either.
Sure.
So you never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, like anything, so we also, this land use board also, so planning board, we are in charge of the zoning ordinance, so we create the zoning ordinance. We're the ones that can, besides public petitions, amend it, and then, which would obviously ultimately always go to a town vote for acceptance or not. So where was I going with that? So we've got the zoning ordinance under us, the master plan is under us, subdivision regulations, site plan, review application regulations, so those are all pieces. The zoning is the most strict of all those, meaning if there's something in zoning and the applicant can't meet it, unless there's a special exception or something written into that article, in that ordinance, they want relief from it, they have to go to the
Zoning
zoning
board.
board for either a special exception or a variance. Where those other two documents I mentioned, sometimes there's areas they can get waivers for, conditional use permits, things of that nature, and each one is handled a little bit differently.
I would think it's best to have, a third-party professional write these things just to reduce risk,
Yeah.
to reduce the chance of liabilities and things like that.
Yeah, oftentimes with our zoning ordinance amendments, we have contracted some of the, like, depending on what the amendment is that might be proposed, we've contracted them out to a third party to come up with the draft language, but oftentimes you could see that it's pulled from other towns, the majority of it, so you're not reinventing the wheel most of the time. We also have Stratford Regional Planning Commission that we can lean on a bit, depending on how much is in the budget and how we're doing our time with them. And they can assist with some of that as well. So there's all that.
And you said something about a warrant article for the impact fees, but the impact fees actually helps the town people because it offsets the cost of things that are impacting the town through the development. It's the people within the development that are paying it, not townspeople,
Yeah, right, the
but
thought.
for the most part.
I'm not gonna propose one.
Oh, no, I
So
know.
Don't look at me for saying,
but you
hey,
said
I'm
it.
gonna go write something. Well, I'm just saying that anything,
Anything is
all you
possible.
need is 25 votes and you can write your own warrant article that goes in front, so.
But next
if-
year.
Right,
Yes.
so let's just, exactly, so let's say a new development, everybody in that development got 25 people and they got to write it in.
But then if they,
They still gotta wait the term period of the impact fees before they get their money back, but that might move forward, I'm just saying, I mean, there's,
once it's gone in and it's, if anything that comes under the current standards can't be
Stays.
changed, it would be anything going forward that it would
Right.
impact.
Right.
So,
again, it's not a subject that I wanna talk about. I
okay.
don't wanna see it happen.
You brought it up.
I was just bringing up a hypothetical situation, because if you look nowadays, anything can happen, so hey, let's be open
Well,
and say.
and the town could pass a warrant article that a citizen petitioned, and then the town can ignore it if they wish, as we found out with something else.
Can we, ask,
Yeah, I always mention, we're not an enforcement board at all, so, you know, we're here for plans and regulate, but once it gets to enforcement, it's outside our purview. The building inspector we'll always welcome, the building inspector in when we have joint meetings so that we can see like what they're encountering.
and can we have
But yeah,
Drew
we're not.
introduce himself?
Oh yeah, Drew, I'm sorry, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Cummings introduced himself. I did not, you introduce yourself.
Yeah, I am Drew Stevens. Can you just say my address or anything?
Yeah,
No.
could you, I don't really know you other than having seen you on Saturday.
Sure, yeah.
So I didn't even know there was anything about your write-in, who you are, what you do, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So I live here in town, of course, and I work at the university as a researcher. I have experience as an environmental consultant in brownfield redevelopment. I also volunteer a lot of my time as the president of New Hampshire Turtle Rescue, which is a local nonprofit public charity here in town as well, located here in town. And I felt heard the call of civic duty and thought I would go for one of the open positions on the town ballot yesterday, and did a small, short write-in campaign that ended up being successful. So I'm very much looking forward to working with you all, and I know I've got a lot to learn, but I am eager to start soaking it up and put in the effort.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent,
Yeah,
thank you.
and to both of you, we were all new once, so it's,
Absolutely.
you learn on every case and everything, and that's again, everybody brings something, and that's why there is a full board, is ideally, so that, you know, between all of us, hopefully we catch the majority of things, and, you know, that's the goal.
And we all get in on a different level. My
Yeah,
thing for it was when this board was looking to have anybody subdivide and give half of that land into, putting it aside. Remember that? Were you on the board at that point?
I think so.
Okay. They were, if you had like 50 acres and you wanted to subdivide, you had to give 25 of it and have it be, not developed. So it had to be, what is it? In conservation. And I'm like, that's kind of land grabbing, but that was my introduction to the planning board, and it was soon after that that I came on. And my background is nursing, so I knew nothing on this other than my reading of maps through the Army Reserve.
I got on because I'm nosy, and I want to know what's going on in town. Sure,
And it hasn't changed.
when I got off zoning board, I sat on this board because I saw the stuff that was going on there, and I was like, well, I gotta get on planning, because then I'll find out really what's going on with all developments, who's going here, who's building this, what roads. And so it was more of just, me wanting to be active, and, because you'll know everything that's going on. This is a great way to be.
Part of it.
Yeah.
I was at the site walk on Saturday.
Right.
and, Teresa made a pitch to me to, consider joining the board.
Yeah.
I, of course, did that. I don't know if I have time for that.
You
like-
did say that.
And
so that
she
was
made
really
a
quick writing
convincing
campaign.
pitch,
Well, I said you make time for what's important to you.
Exactly. So I realized that this is an important thing and that there weren't apparently other people in town willing to step up at the time, so thought I would see what I could do for the town.
Thank you, thank you.
appreciate it. I'll jump into select board, staff board member updates. It's just, Mrs. Bascom, do you have anything?
Well, I want to know is, this board still gonna have an SRPC rep, or do I not go to any more of those meetings?
It's a good question. So the question, so
Because there's a meeting Friday.
with the budget, we were a dues paying member, so every town has an option to be a member of a regional planning commission. We selected Stratford Regional Planning Commission, because many of the towns that abut us are Stratford, versus Rockingham Planning Commission. So those planning commissions provide a lot of services to their member towns. And prior to last year, we were one of only two towns that was not a dues paying member. The other one was, maybe, I don't wanna say it right, it was probably Brookfield. It was a very small town. I think it was like a 700 population or so. So the town, voted to add in the budget for us to be a dues paying member so that we were, carrying our weight in paying for the service that we were receiving.
And being able to vote.
And by doing so, each municipality is offered, one or two members to be on the commission. But if you're not a dues paying member, you have no vote. So it was hard to get people to volunteer for that. Again, it's a non-paid position in the town, when you have kind of no say. So our membership, I imagine, I'd have to find out when that actually runs out.
Okay.
When we're paid through. I don't know if it's calendar year or fiscal year. But that is the input I had kind of received. I know Ms. Anderson's term expired. So I will find out that information.
Yeah,
And-
please let me know, because if we're not gonna be, on there and voting, then there's really no reason for me to go to that meeting Friday. But if it's still beneficial for the town, obviously I'll go and be there.
Sure.
But,
Yeah, I'll check in with either SRPC and or, the town administrator tomorrow to see if I can get an answer on that.
okay, great, I appreciate that, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. And then obviously, you know, with the budget and everything, I just gotta find out some more information with the town administrator and SRPC as to where we are, in our current planning services. But we may have some more to talk about at our next meeting or for one of the April meetings about that and potentially some changes that I was thinking about to maybe offset some of that loss and, or decrease in budget.
Okay,
Mr. Moore?
Everybody came out and saw the vote. If you didn't come out and vote, you should've came out and vote. So, I could be sarcastic and say, if you didn't come out and vote, don't complain, but that is something else. But, yeah, we're getting some changes. The select board's gonna have some budget cuts that we're gonna have to deal with, so some things are gonna happen. And, it's gonna be an interesting year, but we'll make it work. So, and that's all just due with elections and what happened with voting and stuff and bills, but it is what it is.
I looked over the results, and it looks like people really read. Not that I agree with all of the results, but because of the variation in the yes, nos,
Oh, yeah.
that was
You
the
know-
first year I've actually seen anything like that happen.
Yeah, and again, I would like to, I mean, again, this is just discussion, this is an opinion of John Moore, not opinion of the Board of Select. If we're gonna talk like this, I'll be happy to bring that. You know, when you've seen a January tax increase on your taxes, it doesn't inspire you to vote yes for articles that are gonna maybe cost you a little bit more. You know, the timing and the frame of how things worked. You know, going back now to reading articles, you know, there's a hindsight of everything that happens. You know, you do your best of what you have, and you think you're doing it the best, and, you know, obviously when the results aren't there, it's easier to go back and nitpick, but you could say some of the way the things were worded could have been changed to make it seem better. You know, but these are things that, you know, I'm not one that looks into the past and says, well, here, this is what happened, this is what we're dealing with, and this is where we're gonna go forward with, you know, and I'm sure there's gonna be decisions made that, and there's gonna be actions that's gonna happen that are probably not going to be liked by a majority of people, but there's things that's gonna happen that need to happen, so we will have a lot of discussion at the next, I'm sure, couple select boards meetings about how we move forward with services and things that the town has with what we have remaining for our budget, but it's, you know, it's a 5-member board, so we'll all be talking about what we need to do.
Okay.
So, I'm sure, it's not the end of the world, Nottingham's not going away because of it. You know, maybe it's a good thing that we had this happen. You know, maybe it was you know, I positively look at things, I don't try to be negative, so, you know, we're gonna work the best that we have to what it is, and we'll see where it goes, and, you know, the numbers are what the numbers are gonna be.
We have to look at what's best
know.
for the town, absolutely.
Yeah, and you know, you gotta respect what the people of the town came and voted. You know, if you didn't, that's what I said, if you didn't vote, you know, that's, and you think, well, you know, this is what happens. You know, we encourage people to come and vote. It's nice to see that when we're running for somebody who president, you get 3,000 people show up for that. But the real bottom line is the election we just had.
Exactly.
The RSA, no, that's what really matters for what your
Exactly.
daily life's gonna be, but, you know, that's just me standing on a soapbox, so
Do
whatever.
you know what the participation rate was?
1,300 people, just under.
Yeah.
It's typically, you know, but again, that's what it is. You know,
Right.
the only time you see it higher in the years that I've been volunteering, because I volunteered before, I was actually even on the board, mandatory doing time. You need a $3 million something in order to get that town election one to boost up to getting close to 2,000 people. You have to have something that's,
Significant.
right,
It's just tough, even with like now, with even absentee ballots being available.
Sure.
More people aren't participating, but I get
but
it.
you know, but you know, we had barely any write-ins, I mean, mail-in ballots. It was all people that showed up, I mean,
Right, there were very few
very
absentee
few,
voters.
right, you were there, you saw
Oh,
it.
yeah, if
So,
you
yeah.
count everything, or, yeah.
Right, so that was not,
My concern is always, with the town, is always, one of the things is the ability to retain the qualified people that we have in town, you know, and then, attract new people, so it's hard. When I say that, I mean, the people that actually are employees of the town. You know, I want them to have decent work environments, nothing less than that I would expect for myself or individuals or my employees, but, just really make sure that we're able to retain them, because we lose people to other towns that are starting to pay more, or other professions that are similar, but make sure we can, and then people are upset about a lack of service because we lost the people that were doing it. So make sure we can retain and keep the people that we have and attract people, but I get it within, you know, we have to operate within a budget, and like Mr. Moore said, it is what it is, it's kinda, and we move on and move forward. I don't have anything else for myself other than just, you know, to thank everybody that did take part in the elections, yesterday, and especially all the volunteers and town clerk and moderators and the election volunteers and everything. It's a lot, it's a long day.
It's a long day.
Big thing. It runs very smoothly in this town. It's pretty amazing how everybody does, so thank you to everybody that was there.
All of the write-ins made for a very long
Yeah,
night.
I thought that was gonna
Counting
happen.
those. We actually got done counting the books for all of the people that came in, counting up we go through and count how many Republicans, Democrats, undeclared, absentee votes, and all that goes into the computer for the supervisors of the checklist. But we actually finished that last night before they finished counting the ballots.
never happens.
It never happens, is right.
No, I saw obviously there was a few like for this board, you know, they're open positions, so I know
Right.
like that's gonna take a
Yep,
while to get through the
and it
write-ins.
did, yeah.
Well, thank you for all that. Does anybody else have anything before so next meeting?
Yes, election of office.
I don't wanna lose anybody's voice for the meeting, sorry. I don't wanna lose anybody's voice for that meeting. I don't know if anybody wants, I'm hesitant to hold a separate meeting between now and then. I'm definitely willing to do that. It depends on everybody's purview, or we do it a bit early on the 27th, say that 6:30 to 7 o'clock bracket to do election of officers, review of bylaws, that non-business section that we're missing tonight.
You should be able to get that done in a half hour.
Again, though, I will not be here, so, how do I get my opinion heard on who I would nominate for chair?
Well, you could
Which-
always, you could just, I guess you could write it into a line saying this, but I mean, it depends who the board puts up as chair.
Well-
For you to say yay or nay, I mean, it's unfortunate that you won't be here, but that's, I don't think I'm not trying to be mean, but
It
I
doesn't
just-
matter what I think, is that what you're saying, John?
if you can't be here, it's just part, I mean, you can't change the schedule, you can't do it for one member.
Oh, I
It's not
know.
fair to the 7 others, so
No.
it's,
Well, there
it's just
isn't 7
unfortunate.
others.
No, but I do want to make sure
Unless
that
you
you're-
wanna tell us now that do you wanna be the acting, vice chair, do you wanna be something? And then maybe somebody will put your name up, so feel free if you wanna tell us you wanna step up for a position. I'm sure somebody will be more than happy to say, don't forget about Teresa wanting to be the new treasurer or
No.
wanting to be.
Yeah, there's usually no hands up when it comes up, so,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, I'm always willing, I definitely want to make sure your voice is heard, so that your voice is given, audience. And then I always say it every year, you know, I appreciate the role, but by no means I have no ego with it. So, you know, if anybody ever wants to be chair, step in vice chair, you know, that's definitely okay by me, and I'm happy to share, you know, if I'm ever not in this role, share what some of the weekly things are. And
Well, I would be, that was my thing, is that I would be nominating you again for chair. I think it's important to have your experience and you to stay in that role, especially where we've got such a new board. I just think it makes the most sense. So that was gonna be my voice tonight.
I appreciate that. It's
welcome.
humbling, but again, yeah, you know, but by no means are any of these seats set in stone. Everybody has an opportunity, and if I ever vacate it, happy to share, you know, I probably take 10 to 20 emails a week between Alana and Blair and
And
such.
you're welcome to each and every one of them.
Since you're the chair of the zoning board, would you like to be vice chair of the planning board? Since you will be the second with, I mean,
Yes,
Experience?
I know, I thought of that. I did think of that.
unless you guys want to step up and say you don't mind, I mean.
Are you kidding me? I'm sitting over here, I'm listening to all this, and I'm thinking, we are so new, I'm with Drew, you know, I'm a little bit nervous, this is all really complicated. But I did want to step up and do something for the community. And if there's so many new people on something as complex as planning board, we're gonna need some experienced leadership. That would be you, Ed.
All right, thank you. So what we'll do is, we'll schedule a non-business meeting from 6:30 to 7 on March 27th. Anybody that cannot attend, please go ahead and send an email to Alana so that we can make sure that comments get in. And my guess is we might not eat up that whole half hour, but we'll make sure that the 7 o'clock meeting starts on time, one way or the other.
And make sure you guys are sworn in, and then you'll be able to get your books as well.
Yep. Yeah, I'm gonna hold off on these, but I'll hand you some other things out before you leave tonight. Does anybody else have anything? Again, there was no quorum tonight, so no votes needed, so, 7:55, one of our earliest ones, the meeting is adjourned.